Well, again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jessica Silverman. I am the Content and Collaborations Manager for LabXchange, and I'm happy to be leading you through our tour today. I am also joined by my colleague Ileana Saka, who will be answering questions in the chat box today. I'm sorry, in the Q&A box today. So please feel free at any point if you have questions to drop those there, and Ileana will be happy to answer those for you. Or stop me if there's something that we should discuss as well. I'm also fortunate to be joined by a couple of teachers in our LabXchange community. Mary Lou is an AP biology teacher from Weston High School, and Deb O'Reilly is a chemistry and biotechnology teacher from Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical High School. So thank you to both of them for being here today, and you're going to get to hear from both of them later on about how they've used LabXchange in their classes to support students, and they'll give you some tips and tricks. So we've gone through our introductions here, but before we dive into why LabXchange, I do want to make sure that we outline our goals for today. So as you'll see, LabXchange is a pretty robust tool. There's a lot you can do with it. So we want to make sure that you walk away from today understanding what LabXchange is, what it can do, what it offers, and how it can really impact both you and your students as a support for in-person, hybrid, remote learning, whatever you may be engaging in now. And then, of course, we will identify resources to help you get started right away. We want you to walk away feeling like this is something that you can get started using today. So LabXchange, is very briefly, is a platform for teaching and learning science, but it's really unique in that it's also a community where teachers, students, and researchers can be connected to, continue exploring their interest in different scientific topics and to really help to inspire the next generation of scientists. LabXchange is developed at Harvard University, and I want to make sure this point is really clear. It is completely free thanks to funding from the Amgen Foundation. So not just free today, not just free because of COVID, but completely free. We're very committed to this. It's a large part of our mission of really increasing access to high quality science education around the world. So even though we're going to talk today about creating accounts to personalize your experience with LabXchange, just want to make sure you remember that that is still completely free. So before we dive into our tour of the platform, I want to talk just a little bit about why LabXchange was created. So we have a few goals here, but one of them was to really reimagine how we're teaching science online to make it an active learning experience for students, but also to make it modular and personalizable. So you're going to see today our pathway feature, which we'll spend some time talking about, that allows you to mix and match learning experiences either from our curated library, where we have learning experiences from a variety of different organizations around the world. Or if you don't see something in the library that's right for you, you can also create your own content and mix that in too. So it really gives you a way to personalize the experience for a class, for an individual student, and to do it in this community setting that we talked about, where you have private classes, mentoring opportunities, and other ways to share information. We also wanted to make sure to create opportunities for a deeper, more authentic engagement with the process of science. And you'll see that come out not just in the content that we curate, but in the content that LabXchange creates, including our lab simulations, which you're seeing one of them running here. So this is really a unique opportunity to leverage the digital space to provide a place where students can make mistakes, right? Those of us familiar with science research know that it's messy. Oftentimes your experiments don't work. The data doesn't make a lot of sense. You have to do it again and again and again. So we wanted to really take away the cost of resources, take away barriers to access to equipment, and give all students the opportunity to really iterate and explore the process of science. So we'll talk more about our simulations and some of our active learning content during the tour. Another thing that we really hope to accomplish with LabXchange is to reveal a clear picture of ways to get involved in STEM. And so, often we have this picture that in order to be a scientist, you have to wear a lab coat, you have to do bench research, but we really want folks to be able to see through narratives on the site and through connections with scientists that really there are so many different ways to leverage your personal interests, whether they be in finance or in communication, to think about how you as an individual can contribute and have a place in the community of science. And so to that end, we're working to bring together this diverse community to really support students and those who are looking to move forward in their career in science, so that everyone can find a way to contribute to the unique and complex challenges of scientific innovation. So as I said, LabXchange is a robust tool. There's a lot we can do. Today we're going to talk about how you can explore new topics and careers in life sciences, either for yourself or with a group of learners. And along with that, you might want to design and share learning experiences with others. Coming soon, we have global discussion forums where you'll be able to share thoughts on innovations in science and education with peers, with scientists. And then of course the content in our library, really we try to focus on how this can be, the science that you're learning can be applied to real world issues to make sure that it's really engaging for learners. I hope that you'll also see that LabXchange is a place to develop professional skills. We have a growing body of professional development content in our library for educators and for scientists who are looking to, increase their lab skills. And to complement that, we also have a mentoring function as well, which we will spend just a little bit of time on today, taking a look at the opportunities to connect with others on the platform through mentoring, through sharing content. And I'm sure that there is more that you can think of to do with LabXchange that you will think of. So I hope that you will stay in touch with us through the email that's provided at the end to let us know about your experience and to let us know how you're using LabXchange. So with that, we're going to dive into a tour of the platform. I'm going to take you over here to the platform, and somebody's going to let me know if anybody's having any trouble seeing the screens that we're on. But you should be seeing the LabXchange homepage. So if you put in labexchange.org, this is where it takes you. And we have some suggested, starting points for learners and for educators here. But I'm going to take you on the express route. We're going to head right over to our library because I think the library really exemplifies what LabXchange is all about. And we want to get you to a place where you can find the learning experiences that you and that your learners are looking for. So we're going to navigate today using our Browse tab here in the upper left. If you are interested, you can check out our Explore page where we feature sort of content of the week. So if you're just browsing, looking around, looking for ideas, for inspiration, you want to see what the latest content is, you can check that out. But again, we're going to start today over at our library. So in our library, you will find thousands of different learning experiences. And this really speaks to the modular nature of LabXchange. So you could spend just a couple of minutes watching a video about what it's like inside the cell, or you could look for a longer, more involved learning experience like a pathway. So we have these individual assets, or we have these pathways where you can string together those learning experiences in an order that makes sense for you and for your learners. And so you can navigate the library using the filters here. You can see we are primarily a platform for life sciences at the moment, but expanding quickly. So we offer a lot of content to support those in the life sciences, including biotechnology, genetics, biochemistry, cell biology. But again, we are working every day to expand this offering to meet the needs of our users. So if you are exploring and you don't see content that you're interested in, I hope you'll let us know. We also are expanding out into chemistry, physics, and again, we're very interested in how these concepts that you're learning on LabXchange are intersecting with what you're reading about in the news, with issues that impact society, and so really helping people to bridge that connection. And as I mentioned, LabXchange is also a place to support advancing in your scientific career. So we hope that students are coming here to get excited about science. Once they are, maybe they want to think about preparing for college or maybe preparing for graduate school. And as you are studying science further and you're interested in thinking about what careers are out there, we have options for that as well. And then, as I mentioned, professional development for educators too. So really we're here to support, getting interested, getting that toehold into the world of science, and then, moving on from there to explore the ways that you're interested in learning more. And to that end, we also have a number of different types of content. We're going to spend a little bit more time on this in just a little bit. So we have a lot of, learning experiences, videos, texts. We spend a lot of effort to make sure that we offer active learning experiences like simulations and interactives, which we'll talk about in a little bit. as well as our narratives and case studies and other ways that feature stories from real scientists talking about what excites them, what brings them joy, what challenges they've faced and how they've overcome them in their journey in science. So what's so neat about this is you really can find the right modality. You can find the thing that speaks to you or to an individual student to really customize that learning experience. And the last filter I'll show you before we go explore a pathway is background knowledge. One of the questions that we frequently get is, who is this platform for? Who does this support? So I just wanted to, clarify that the content in our library is really designed to support those in, secondary school, 9th grade through 12th grade, to undergraduate and beyond. That said, there's a lot of really fun content here that resonates with younger learners as well, but I just wanted to flag that you do need to be 13 in order to create an account for the platform, and so we certainly encourage younger users to browse with the supervision of a parent or a teacher, but that is really the age range that we're targeting here is the high school to college range. And so with that, the no background knowledge tag is really designed to show you the introductory content that might be appropriate for someone who's never taken a course in this before. So that could be 9th grade, but you could also be learning about cells for the first time as an undergraduate. So, use this as maybe a rough guide to find what you're looking for. Someone with some background knowledge maybe has taken a course already in this topic, and so that might be advanced high school, that might be early undergraduate, and extensive would be beyond that. So you can use this as another guide to find, just what it is that you're looking for in the library. And by the way, I wanted to mention too that all of the content that you see here is coming from a variety of different organizations like Khan Academy, who have contributed their content to our library to make it freely available for you to incorporate into your lessons and to mix and match. So there's really a diversity of perspectives here and representation of different content types. And we think that that's one of the strengths and the advantages of this platform. If you don't find a representation that speaks to you here, you can check another content source, and there's always a lot of diversity that you can find in the library here. So I'm going to show you our coronavirus pathway here, just to give you a sense for what these pathways look like. This pathway has received a lot of love. We've heard from a lot of educators who've used this, who have customized this for their students, and their students have really found it interesting and found it a jumping off point that inspired them to do more research and come up with their own projects. So it's been so exciting to see how this pathway has really taken off. We initially created it to help folks understand the connection between bats and coronavirus. So you'll see that at the end of this series of learning experiences, which include texts, images, assessment questions, all different ways of learning this material in bite-sized chunks. At the end, you've met these relatively targeted learning objectives. And again, this is a pathway that we put together, but we encourage folks to take this and really make it their own, make it what you need, what you're looking for. So you can clone this pathway and make a copy of it that allows you to edit it. And so this puts it into your personal library, your personal dashboard, so you can customize this as you like. So maybe your learners, are not quite interested or ready for the life cycle of a virus, so we can take that out. But maybe you'd like to add something else from the public library about viruses. We can see what there is. Maybe we'd like to add something about viral adaptation. Or if I don't see anything here that's right, I can also go and check out the content that I've created myself, things that I've uploaded, things that I know work well with my students, and I can add those items as well. So this gives you the freedom to draw on really any type of learning experience that you can envision, that you can create, or that you can find, and these can all be incorporated here. And you can further, customize, you can move these around, you can add notes to your students as you watch this video, make sure you think about, or you could also just play a portion of the video if that's right for your learners as well. So there's really a lot of ways that you can customize this. And you could think about this as, being for a single class, or you could even add in additional supports or extensions for individual students. You know, I'm a former high school teacher myself, and I have to say that this is the feature that got me so excited about LabXchange. I used to teach a differentiated chemistry course, and it was project-based, and so the idea of being able to take a pathway and to copy that and make adjustments that were just right for my individual students in that class is, to me, very exciting and something that I was desperately missing in my own planning. So we really do hope that this will be a supportive tool for you and for your learners. And once you're done creating your pathway, you can publish that privately and it will end up in your dashboard. So we were talking before about that public library, and that is content that comes from organizations that we build collaborations with that are vetted. But again, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to create just what you need for your learners. So in your educator dashboard here, again, we're navigating with the browse button today. So in your dashboard, you'll find that any content that you create will live here. And you have the ability at any time to add new content, whether you want to create your own pathway, whether you want to create assessments or collections of assessment questions, maybe add in a PDF of a lesson or a reading that you know works well with students. So you really have the flexibility here to add any different type of content that would help support you and your learners. So this is our private dashboard, our private library. So that's, you can see the little private icon here. So this is content that I could share with others if I wanted to, say, assign it to a private class, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I could share it with learners that way, or in fact, I could just take this link and I could share that with someone else as well. And so that allows me to, you know, really just spread this content to anyone that I'm interested in sharing this with. Here's my assign to class button. And the only caveat is that person just needs to be logged into their LabXchange account in order to see this private content. But lots of flexibility in how you can share that. And you could think about creating content both for students, but also for colleagues, for collaboration, for professional development. So lots of different ways to think about using pathways. So we're back in the public library here. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about content creation and the private library in a little bit. But just wanted to show you sort of some of the other types of content that are available in our public library for you to choose from. And again, this is growing every day. So if you check back tomorrow, this number might be higher as we continually build relationships and continually add content to the site. So we talked about some of these other content types. I want to show you our interactives as a great example of you know, an active learning experience that we're finding is popular with students. For anybody looking for content for, you know, say the middle school age, this can be a great option. This is one of our collaborators, Lifeology. They have these beautiful interactives that really bring together science and art. So I would encourage you to check those out. Or if you're looking for something very technical, we have some great interactives from Biotechnology that really showcase, you know, what a coronavirus virion looks like or what the infection symptoms are really like. So there's a variety of options here. So I'll show you one of ours just to give you a flavor for these interactives. So I'm advancing this content just by scrolling on the mouse, and you know, this really puts students in the driver's seat. It really gives them the opportunity to go at their own pace. They're not worried about, you know, a lecture going too fast or the information coming by too fast. They can stop at any point, they can go back. They can jump around, or you as an educator could say, you know, we're going to go right to section 5 of this interactive so that you can see a particular concept. But we're finding that these are very popular with our teachers and students in our communities, and that they're really enjoying being able to use these as tools to help visualize these molecular level processes. So I would definitely encourage you to check these out and see if there might be something here that would fit or resonate with your learners. And one other type of active learning experience that I'd like to show you is our lab simulations. So we have a number of different simulations here that really walk you through an experiment, all of the different steps, all of the different reagents that you would use. And normally, you know, we would see this as a complement to something that you might be doing in class, but if you're not able to get into your laboratory space, this might be a nice replacement for something that you would normally do with students. But these simulations give you some context for why you're doing the experiment. They introduce you to the different pieces of equipment. How great is it to be able to have students know that they have to add a pipette tip to the pipette before they do this in class? So again, this can be a great way to help build student confidence, make sure that they're clear on what they're doing when they get to the lab. Or if this is not equipment that students would normally see, this is a great way for them to be able to have that access and to understand what these things look like and be familiar with them when they are able to get into a laboratory setting. And we have, these interactive predictions. Of course, you always want to predict what's going to happen when you do an experiment, and this will be shown back to students at the end so that they can compare what they thought was going to happen with what actually happened. And then we dive into the protocol. And although there's guidance here, you don't have to follow that. So I often don't. You can see I got a warning there. I have to put a tip on my pipette. So already I'm starting to be introduced to the best practices for using this equipment, the tips and tricks, the way it functions, the limitations. And so, no one's watching me and no one's worrying about what I'm doing wrong. I have the freedom here to really make any mistake that I would like with this, or, redo this as many times as I want, just start over until I feel confident, until I feel like I've gotten what I want to out of this. And then in the results section, again, I'll see how my actions in that lab actually led to results, or in this case, since I didn't do the experiment, lack of results. And I can compare that with, what an ideal case would be. So we've really designed these to guide students through, even if they're completing this in an asynchronous learning environment, there's feedback to help them make sure they get on track, make sure they've gotten the most out of the experience and feel good about these concepts. And then we leave them with a summary of what they've done. And I love to use these takeaway messages, these sort of tips and tricks, as if you had a technician or a postdoc, standing over your shoulder telling you how you should be doing these experiments. So all designed to build confidence for students so that they can, feel good utilizing these techniques when they're able to get into a real lab environment. So I want to pause here for a moment and turn things over to one of our teachers, Deb, who's going to talk a little bit about how she has used these lab simulations in her class. Deb, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. So hi, everyone. Jess, can you let me share my screen? Will that be all right? Okay, so as Jess had showed you, if I go up here, I'm in my educator dashboard. So this is my the area where I'm storing my content that I'm accumulating for my class. Deb, and then I do have.
Oops, sorry, Deb. We're just not seeing your screen there. Is that share?
Maybe I should hit share.
No problem. It is Monday.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in my educator dashboard. I have content that I've uploaded that I work with, but more importantly, I have my classes that I've created. I teach at a vocational high school, so I have a skills-based biotechnology class that my students are with me for about 4.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then they switch out to their academics. I specifically wanted to show you how I use this with my freshmen this year in the online learning platform when we all went to remote learning. This is going to come up. There it is. So when we left school this spring, I was in the middle of teaching students about bacteria. And they had just plated bacteria and played with like how you can clean a surface to be bacterial free, and we're able to plate bacteria to see no growth versus growth kind of a thing. And I just wanted to continue with that in the remote learning platform. So I built a pathway, and you can see up here, this is content that I had from my class. Once it's assigned, it comes down here. I'll show you that pathway very quickly. And the students were asked to watch a video on their own, go through a second video on bacterial growth. And then you can see here that I was able to add in a link to a Google Doc that I created that reviewed both of those things. Oh, sorry, no, this is the LabXchange. So this is just I like to, if there's text available to support the videos, I like to show the text after the video. So sometimes kids aren't paying attention. I know that's a surprise to a video when they're supposed to watch it, but so I always ask them to kind of look at text afterwards. So that's just repetitive information. If they watch the video and understood it, they don't have it. But this is what I wanted to show you here too, is that oftentimes I'll link a Google Doc right into my pathway, and students will come in here and just, I didn't activate this link. I apologize, but they'll come in here and go to that Google Doc. And it just asks some basic questions for them, and then it's going to ask them to graph what they saw. And I just included in here a student graph so that I could see that they understood what was happening. And then it goes back and asks them to identify which states of bacterial growth are present or not present, etc. And what's nice about that is I can, have all of their assignments turned in and keep them. I know Mary is going to talk a little bit more about how she uses that, the class feature, to monitor progress. I also do monitor progress, but I like to keep the assignments reproducible. I like to hold on to their assignments to make sure I have them. And what's nice about this, even if you're not in the online learning platforms, you can kind of do that same thing with students as homework assignment. And then they can come in and do the actual lab work once they're in class. And I'm going to defer to Mary at this point.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Deb, for giving us this introduction. And we definitely are going to talk more about classes actually in just a moment. But it's always great to see, how folks are actually using the simulations. We, have some ideas of how you can use these to help students prepare before a lab or, as an assessment after the lab. But thank you, Deb, for sharing, really the work that you've done to contextualize these simulations and other experiences for your students. So if you have questions for Deb, definitely keep those coming in the chat box. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer those, and we'll come back to those as well in the Q&A if we haven't had those answered. But I wanted to show you some examples of some of the pathways that we've created as, again, just, templates, ways that you can do exactly what Deb has done and use it as a jumping off point to create your own resource that's going to meet the needs of your students. So we're looking here at an example of a pathway, and I'll show you where this came from in just a sec. This is a pathway that teaches students about how to micropipette. And so, we've offered suggestions for how to start. You could take a look at, the equipment, get used to the idea of small volumes, why those are important. You can take a tour of a pipette and all the different parts using a scrollable interactive. A little bit of assessment here to make sure they feel comfortable with reading the window in a pipette before they really dive into that simulation, because those simulations can be very rich, engaging, but in-depth experience for students. We want to make sure they're supported in getting there. And then finishing off with an extension to think about someone who, uses this pipetting technique in her lab to solve an actual problem or to address, real questions in science. And so again, just like we saw before, you could use this as is. You could, use that clone feature to make a copy to adjust it as you like, or you could build something completely from scratch. This pathway comes from a collection of resources that we have put together called our Foundational Concepts and Techniques in Biotechnology. So this is an example of one of our clusters, and I'll show you where to find those in the library in just a moment. If you filter the library by cluster, you'll see it there. So clusters are a collection of pathways. So each of these hexagons, if I were to click on that, would take me to a separate pathway. And this particular cluster focuses on guiding learners through the process of gene cloning. And in doing so, it introduces them to a lot of fundamental techniques like micropipetting, like gel electrophoresis, and the use of bacteria in these experiments. So really a lot of foundational ideas. But you can see there's also a lot here. So we've offered some tours or some suggested ways through these different pathways depending on what you're interested in. So if you're looking more for a thematic introduction to genetic engineering rather than focusing specifically on the lab methods, you might be interested in these 4 pathways in this particular order. Or if you are going the other way, let's say that you are maybe about to start a lab rotation and you're interested in building a recombinant plasmid in your lab and you want to know how that's done, you could take these 3 pathways in this order, and that would be a more focused experience. So we're really excited about these clusters because it offers a new way of thinking about curriculum and about thinking about class experiences. So you could sort of think to yourself, which of these experiences could be common for students versus which could be groupings that they explore based on their individual interests. And we have a number of these clusters in our library, and we're looking to add more soon. But again, if you filter the library by cluster, you'll see these come up. So we were just looking at this one on gene cloning. We have another cluster here on CRISPR. If you're interested in thinking about how to fold that into your instruction, or if you have students who are excited about CRISPR and want to learn more, I would recommend this cluster as well, which also includes a tour of more advanced lab techniques like protein gels and Western blotting. And then if anybody out there is teaching AP biology or an honors biology course, we have a cluster here that's designed to really encapsulate sort of the major themes of biology and is specifically referencing the AP biology curriculum. So this could be a great place to start just by taking a look at some of the suggested resources for each of these different topics and tours. So I would definitely suggest that you check out these clusters if you're looking for a place to start. And by the way, just again to emphasize that LabXchange is a place both for learning science, but also for advancing in your career. We also have a cluster here on applying to college. So depending on where students are in this journey or what they're interested in, whether it's thinking about completing their application or what life looks like after high school, there's a number of different tours that they can choose from here as well. So I would just keep this in mind, again, is that sort of opportunities for other ways to think about using LabXchange to support learners. So I want to head out of the library and explore our dashboard a little bit more. So you saw this just briefly as we were talking about adding your own content. So the dashboard is really your place to customize your experience on LabXchange. And so if you want to create an account that will let you create your own content, create classes, which we'll talk about in a minute, really anything that needs to remember your progress needs an account. So that would be a reason to sign up. And again, to view private content, you would want to have an account. And so the first tab in your dashboard here is adding content, which we had talked about a little bit. So you can add assessment questions if you want to create something like this for your students. I think Mary's going to talk a little bit more about that. If you like the idea of pathways, you can add them here or your own videos or texts. Again, I always want to highlight this document because I know it can be hard to take on a new tool, just something else that you have to learn. But if you already have some great lessons or great worksheets, those can be popped right in if they're PDFs as a document. So really this can be a pretty low stakes, easy, time-saving way of putting all those resources in one place. You can also favorite things from the library by clicking on the star that's on there. So if you see things that you like that you want to come back to later, you can add them there. And then again, you can create these private collaborative spaces, which are classes. And so it's easy to think about using classes with students, and Mary's going to tell us about that in just a moment. A lot of my classes are actually geared towards professional development, so I'll give you that other take after Mary has had a chance to share how she's used classes with her students during this spring. So Mary, go ahead and take it away.
Okie dokie, let me share my screen. Okay, so I just want to first show you how my class was organized. And you can see I got here through the dashboard again. I'll just back up a second. Educator dashboard, because I'm the one running the class. It's here in my classes. The students finding it, it's in their learner dashboard. And you can see here's all the content I posted. It depends on my class, whether I leave it all there as an ongoing stream or I sort of remove it and unpost it, just like here. If I go the 3 dots unpost, it puts it back up in this unposted section. And I like to release it sort of a few assets at a time to keep my students a little more focused. Another great thing about the classes is you can kind of toggle and see, okay, what are they seeing now? How many things have I posted? And go back to being able to edit it. I do use both content that's public. So these ones you can see I just used as is, but I've also edited things that I post. Like this one's private. You can see I've made some comments on it to help focus sort of which parts I want them to pay attention to. Or here, like we use a physical lab notebook. So I told them which parts of the lab experiment they should actually record and include there. So that was one way I've customized it just by cloning it. If I want to just add content, it's easy here. Like I can even favorite things in the library. Like I was looking at some of these earlier and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to use this. You just hit the little plus, add, super easy. It's in the unposted section. And then when I'm ready to release it, I just hit the plus and bam, there it is. The other thing that's easy to do is to clone things, but I also like to post reminders for my students in Google Classroom because we're a Google school. So here when I just hit share, it's easy just to share it to Google Classroom. It asks me which class I want to post it in. I can post it as an assignment as if it were an attachment. It automatically puts the link directly to my class, so I can still use some of the tracking features. Let me pause on this for a second. Oh, I'm gonna move my toolbar. Okay, which, let me show you that. If I go back to my class, the great thing about using the classes feature is this progress piece, because it allows me to see who's engaged with content, who started it, whether it's complete or not, and if they've done the assessments. So it's nice because it's a quick way to be like, oh, look, you haven't started it yet. That's, you know, maybe why you didn't answer those questions in class. I can then either just download the report here and integrate it into my learning management system. We use Infinite Campus. It just downloads like as an Excel page. Or I can go here to specific learners and either give them follow-up assignments, be like, oh, you didn't finish that here. Maybe let me send you this particular video to reinforce a particular idea. And that sends it just to that one student. I could look at them individually if I want to see, okay, well, which things has Rosa completed? It gives me just her assignments and whether she started them and how much is done. Or I can send just a follow-up message, right? I know she didn't complete the coronavirus pathway yet, and then we can sort of have that conversation privately. So those are the different ways that I can use progress. The last thing I'll mention real quick is the way I've sort of used my own private pathways is I kind of replicate in part some things I do in class. Like here, this is just like a handout I gave out, so I just attached like a PDF. I often preview things that we'll do in class. So this video was a ramp up to the virtual lab we ended up doing. We used the virtual simulation on transformation. And then sometimes I'll just include a quick pre-assessment. So this one is just like a Google form, kind of like Deb showed. It's just a link. They can click on it. It goes directly to their Google form in their login. So it's just one way to kind of keep all the pieces together, and I can see whether they're interacting with them through that progress feature. The last thing I'll mention is how I used just quick assessment questions. So like here's an assessment question I created just to do like a dipstick warm up at the beginning of class. So this would be something I post just at the beginning, a single question, so I can kind of see how people are doing. It gives me a chance to let people in the waiting room on Zoom as well. And then I could track it in this progress feature. So that's nice. The discussion boards, I've used some, sort of a mix between my own Google Classroom and here, but it works just like a regular discussion board. You can post a thread and people can respond and see how people are interacting with that. I'll pause there and hand it back to Jess.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I'm sure that there will be questions for you. I know folks are always interested in how to use the tool with Google Classroom and other LMSs, just as Mary showed. So please feel free to keep those questions coming. We're happy to answer those and show things again. So I know that Mary talked a lot about how you can use this with students and different ways that you can think about using your classes to support students, whether it's with warm-ups or adding more extensive lab-based curricula. I'd love to offer another idea, which is to, again, use classes as a way to run professional development workshops, or think about other initiatives that you might like to collaborate on with your colleagues, whether it's creating curricula for a class, or we've had folks use this to create professional development curricula on remote learning and teaching for teachers around the country. So really a lot of possibilities here, and all of the classes, regardless of what you're using it for, look the same. And so you can add content here just as Mary showed, and have that appear to your learners, and make sure that you are putting out the right content and letting them see what you intend to see by toggling on the learner view. So this all works for classes, whether you are enrolling students or whether you're enrolling your colleagues. And of course, students, when they're in the class, can only see their own progress. They wouldn't see everyone else's. You can also use these discussion boards, again, as Mary mentioned, to facilitate discussions with students, or to plan projects with colleagues, to share the latest article or research or anything that you want to discuss. So there's a lot of different ways to think about how this can facilitate community and connection in this time when people are often, unfortunately, separated. So this can be a really powerful tool to bring that connection. So the last feature that I'll talk about, we're going to go to Browse here. We've been talking about all the different things that you can do with your dashboard. We're going to head over to this last tab, the People tab, and just talk very briefly about our mentoring feature. So you can filter based on, whether folks are mentors or not, what institutions they're from, interests, things like that, so that you can really drill down and identify someone who, if you're looking for expertise, might have the experience that would help you to, say, implement a new curriculum, or think about a new style of pedagogy that you want to use. So once you find somebody that would be of interest to you, you can click on that person's profile, read a little bit more about them, and make sure it's a good fit. And then you can go ahead and just apply for mentorship here. Or if you are looking to offer mentorship, let's say you want to help students looking to get into a lab to upskill on a particular lab technique, or you're interested in helping your colleagues who are perhaps the only AP teacher in their district, and you want to help them think about how to implement that curriculum. You can list all of those interests and experiences here, and then you could also even specify what you're interested in mentoring around. And this is very easy to toggle on and off. So if you are getting a lot of mentoring requests, you can turn that off at any time. And then once you are a mentor, you can manage your mentees through your dashboard. So here we are in that last tab of the dashboard. So you can manage your mentees, you can message them, you can assign them content either from the library or from, I've already assigned Ileana that one, or you can assign your own content as well. So there's a lot of flexibility here to really keep the conversation and mentoring around a particular topic or lab skill as you like. So that's just a little bit about mentoring. This can be a great tool, especially for older students and for educators who are looking to increase their expertise in a supported way. So that is our platform. Believe it or not, our tour has concluded, but I want to leave plenty of time to answer questions. And then I also want to just offer a little teaser. After we talk about questions, we're going to talk about our remote learning cluster, which is your basically starter package here of everything that you need to get started using LabXchange. So we'll pause here for just a moment and see what questions we have. Ileana, do we have any questions to talk about?
Hey, Jessica. I saw that Michael had his hand raised, but he seems to have lowered his hand. Michael, hopefully that means that we answered your question, but if not, please feel free to raise your hand again and we'll allow you to ask your question or make your comment. Oh, bumped it by accident. Okay, no worries. So we've covered quite a few questions so far. We've talked about a little bit about using LabXchange with other LMS and to what extent you could use this content with students in undergraduate or middle school. So we have a couple of questions that have just come in. Just on that note about middle schoolers, is there a timeline for middle school level content being added, and can middle school students use the simulations? Jessica, could you touch on that a little bit more?
Sure, happy to. Let me start with the second part of that question. So yes, students of any age, can use the content in the public library. There's no account needed. We would just, again, encourage younger learners to have a parent or teacher supervising, but yeah, they can absolutely use those simulations. The only thing that you won't see is that progress data. So like Mary showed, if you wanted to see if students had completed the simulation, you might need to ask them for a screenshot or some other way of showing that they've completed it. You wouldn't be able to enroll a middle school student in a class because of the need to be 13 to create an account. And in terms of a timeline for middle school level content, I think that there is quite a lot of fluidity between what is appropriate for an upper middle school student and an introductory high school student. So I think you'll find that there's a growing body of content in the library already that really speaks to those audiences. I would highlight again, we talked about Lifeology, Science IRL, Science Mom, or some of our other favorites that have great content for folks that age. Science Buddies is another great one. So I would definitely check those out, and we are always looking for more content that is engaging and speaks to really a general audience on these different topics.
Thank you, Jessica. So actually, I had a question about how to find the clusters, and then Mary Jean asked if you could show how to access the Science IRL lesson using the filter. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen again and just quickly showing how you filter the search now that everybody has kind of got LabXchange in their head, I think that would be helpful.
Sure thing. So if you wanted to find our clusters, you can filter by content type, and they're organized by the amount of content. So as I mentioned, clusters are something that we're working on. So for now, we only have a few. By the way, we didn't touch on this, but we also have modular textbooks. So you can take just an individual, reading from a textbook, an individual chapter or section, and you can fold that into a pathway as well. So you might want to check those out. But here are our different clusters, and then you can just click on any of these to get started. And so this is where you'll find not only the clusters that we talked about, this biotechnology cluster, CRISPR, core concepts in biology, but also a cluster to help think about how this can be a tool for remote teaching and learning. So that's how to find our clusters. And then if you're interested in a specific content source, you can find those either here. You can use this filter if you like. Again, these are basically our top 10 collaborators with the greatest amount of content here. But if you really want to see the wealth and diversity of content that's here, you can also go to our collaborator page. And this will give you a snapshot of, again, all of the different organizations that have contributed content to our public library, and you can check them out. For example, Oklahoma Science Project, if you're looking for the intersection of coding and genetics, this is a great one to check out. PG Ed is looking at the intersection of genetics and ethics, so I would recommend that, or marine biology if you're looking for that, New England Aquarium. And so here is where you would find Science IRL. So you can check that out, and then you can see all of the content from this provider here, so you can really explore what they have to offer. So that's how you can find specific types of content and specific content sources.
Thanks, Jessica. Do we have time for another question?
Sure, yeah.
Great. So I just had a couple of folks ask about discussion and assessment questions. I think Deb's wonderful workaround of adding a Google form might have led people to believe that that's the only way to add an assessment question or a discussion question. Would you mind just opening up a pathway and showing us how you would add a new assessment question to the end?
Sure, you got it. And I saw another question pop up sort of about, whether we have certain types of content. And so again, I would just highlight that, yes, we are always working to build relationships with organizations to bring us different types of content. But in the meantime, that allows you to add any content that you like from your personal dashboard. So actually, I'll head right over to the dashboard here to just go over the different ways that you could add assessments. So I think what's so nice about the example that Deb showed is that the Google form records that data, you know, in a CSV, and so you could download that and put that wherever you'd like, or you can think about other ways to ask more, you know, open-ended questions if you want to there. But you can also build assessments here on the platform, and those can be linked to your class. You can get all that data, you know, in your class progress tab there. So we'll start with an assessment question here. So let's say I wanted to add a single choice answer. So I can add my question here, how big is a mole? And then I can, you know, add a description. Will test your knowledge. You know, you can sort of let students know, is this a low stakes question? Is this a big one that I should really think about, or have some resources ready for? What is this about? Who, you know, is this sort of a beginning of the unit or an end of the unit kind of question? And then you can ask your question here, and you can really use all of the rich text features here. You can add images or graphs if you want for students to analyze. You can hyperlink to other resources, add quotes, and if you're really advanced, you can go in there and adjust the HTML code if you want to, but there's no need to do that. This is very user-friendly, so you can just ask your question here. And then you can add your answers. You can choose whether this is going to be a correct or an incorrect answer. And then you can also actually add feedback as well and customize some of the other features here. You can add hints. And so this really allows you to, again, guide students as, you know, best we can in an asynchronous learning environment to find the right answer. All of the content that you create on LabXchange is going to ask for some of the same things, like an image. You'll see that the site's very visual. All of the content in the library has an image next to it. And when you have your own content in your dashboard, it's great to have an image just to show you what it is that you are focusing on here. You can also tag this, or you could say, you know, what class it's for or what section it is, just to help you keep your content, you know, more organized in your dashboard. And then you'll click agree here. This public content, again, won't be there for you. This is just an artifact, but you'll be able to add this to your private dashboard and then share that with your class as you like. Once you've published content, we can take a look at any of my content. I can assign this to a class right from this piece of content here. I could add it to a pathway that I'm building, or through the pathway builder, or through the class. I can also add content from my dashboard. So I know that was a little bit of a long explanation, but Ileana, I hope that answered the question about how else you can create assessments. Definitely Mary, Deb, if you guys have anything else you want to add, let us know.
Yeah, I think so, Jessica. How are we doing on time?
Great. I think we are pretty good. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just take a look at some next steps in our remote learning cluster, and then if we have any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer those. But I do want to make sure that everybody has a way of contacting us and you know, following up from the experience today. And by the way, I have seen some questions going by. Yes, we will definitely be sharing a recording of our experience today, as well as some suggested resources. All right, so as I mentioned, one of our clusters there, the one at the top, and actually it's the third thing that you'll see here in the library, so lots of ways to find it. So this is our remote learning with LabXchange cluster, and this is designed to be your, you know, again, your virtual guide to getting started with LabXchange, whether you're looking to start by creating your account and thinking about what account is right for you. This gives you some detail on how to do that. As well as some common questions and you know, how to navigate and find things in the library, and of course how to get help on our help center. We have a number of links down here at the bottom, one of which is to our help center. So if you have any technical questions or you know, anything that you're looking for, you can definitely check out our help center. So that helps you kind of get started with the account phase. You can think about you know, what kind of content there is on LabXchange that you might be interested in using. If you want to share with your students some tips for online learning, this is definitely a skill. There's a different way of approaching learning online than in the classroom that students may not be familiar with or may have had a crash course in and might want to think a little bit more about. So this could be something to share with them. And then as you're ready to think about customizing your experience, you can add your own content, you can think about creating a class, and then think about how this can support you in your curriculum, whether you want to use this to teach lab skills using some of the virtual simulations available on the platform, to teach experimental thinking skills. We didn't even have a chance to talk about this, but we have some experimental design simulations as well that walk you through how you would string together different methods to address an experimental question, to build an online research community, and to think about building scientific literacy. So there's a lot of different resources here to help you get started again at your own pace. So I would highly encourage you to check that out. And if you don't see anything here that you're looking for, definitely let us know. So I'll give you some ways to get in touch with us here. So in terms of next steps, I would say definitely check out our remote learning cluster. Maybe review a couple of sections of this recording when we send that out. But I would really encourage you to create that account and maybe even a class to test it out and just get comfortable with how that works. Share content, either from the library or maybe something that you've created yourself, just to get a flavor for that. And then again, as we mentioned, LabXchange is really a tool designed to have community support around education and around learning of science. And so, we hope that you will share LabXchange with your network. And we're happy to help you, find resources to do that. But really, the more folks that we have come to LabXchange and join our community, the stronger it becomes and the more diverse perspectives we have to offer to students joining the LabXchange community. So I would love it if everybody could tell us a little bit about their experience today, and by filling out our post-workshop survey. That always helps us to know if this experience met your needs or if you're looking for something else. And while you're doing that, I will leave on the screen ways to get in touch with us. So again, if you are interested in visiting the site and playing around, labexchange.org. If you are interested in the latest updates, we release new content, or we have workshops that we announce, or different opportunities. We'll do that through our mailing list. You can sign up at labexchange.org/collaborate. We are also pretty active on social media, so you can find us at LabXchange. And then if you're interested in a presentation like this for your district or for your school, or you're interested in thinking about customized supports for implementing LabXchange, definitely feel free to reach out to us, collaborate@labexchange.org. I know there was also a lot of interest in participation certificates. You can also reach out to us at collaborate@labexchange.org. We're happy to send those, or learn@labexchange.org. Either way you want to reach us, we will definitely get back to you. So we look forward to continuing to connect with you and to hearing about how you use LabXchange. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. And then again, if there are any other questions, happy to address one or two more of those as time allows.